Hey guys, it's Trey with Roofon, Texas. I'm gonna just go over a short little informational video on really what the difference between roof inspections and then home inspections cover when it comes to the roof, and how it really helps on how you should look at these items. Um, so, what every agent here in Texas should know before they let a roof kill one of their sales. We're going to talk first about why a roof can kill the deals. A lot of it's inspection language. Sellers hear that it needs to be replaced too soon, too early. People call the insurance way too late into the process of either selling the house, or insurance might not be the best step, but that's the approach that a lot of companies push towards. The timelines are a big thing, and that comes back to the insurance. Like, if you're towards the end of that deal, a lot of times it can be repaired, a lot of times it can be saved, or there's other options. Of course, I know that some of y'all agents that are a little more seasoned know how to get around to get to where, whether it's giving an allowance, whether it's maybe doing it after the fact, and things like that. And the communication along those items, a lot of it needs to be figured out and stay communicated through it. Inspectors, I was an inspector for 2 years in Tennessee. Moved down here, haven't gotten that aspect going. I haven't really thought about it much, but I'm very familiar with, the verbiage inspectors use, and that's things to kind of save themselves, and also to save from looking too harsh. Some are a little more harsh than others. Some are a little more lenient. But verbiage is a big thing. It's not things that we typically see or hear when it comes from as a new home buyer or something like that. It's not something we dealt with a lot. So inspectors, they might say the end of the useful life of the roof. And buyers, what they hear is the roof is bad, the roof is old, it needs to be changed, it's this. That doesn't honestly, that doesn't mean that every time. End of useful life, that could mean that roof, it's a 30-year roof. It might be on, as estimated, we go up there, take a look. It could be around 20 years old, but, the weather and things like that might have degraded a little bit to a point that we're saying that in the near future, it probably does need to be replaced. Whether it's, 5-10 years from now, usually following that is what I would put is, recommend have a roofer evaluate to determine the condition. And that's because you don't want to be the one to say, oh, this roof definitely needs to be replaced, if you're not the one that's going to be fixing it or living in it or anything like that. So let that to the professional that's going to evaluate that behind you. And you really don't want to cause a ruckus at the beginning, whether you're the roofer or you're the inspector, that could potentially be taken out of context to scare that buyer or that seller into not knowing what to do. The evidence of the wear of it, they say on there evidence of wear. Well, what does that really mean? People will get scared and think, well, my insurance isn't going to cover it. When I buy this house, I'm going to have to change it. It makes the deal too risky. Stuff like that. Evidence of wear, I mean, that's really vague. That could be, photos always follow these, or they should follow them, and so at least you can kind of get an idea. But from a home buying perspective as a client, I might be freaking out. They put evidence of wear, show a couple pictures of some granule loss, and I don't know what to do. The inspector said something bad, and so roofs are expensive, and I don't know what to do. There's always solutions. The majority of the time, it's not a replacement. Usually, you can go in and repair those areas. Roof issues that come up a lot, I'd say, is going to be, and honestly, that aren't that hard to fix. It might be taking a shingle off and replacing it. It might be replacing a piece of flashing or sealing a piece of flashing. We have to note everything as inspectors. We'll go up there and there could be one spot that has a low nail, and then we're going to put, low nail in a picture and put that low nails can cause leaks, and leaks can, cause deterioration of decking, and we'll say stuff like that. But that nail it could only be one shingle, and replace that one shingle for $50 or so, and it's fixed. And what I'd like to say on that is, Nail Pop recommend a qualified roofer to evaluate and repair as required. I'm not going to tell them how to repair it if I was an inspector. So the big thing is just don't get flustered. You as a client don't get flustered. You as a real estate agent don't get flustered if you get these things. You get something that says nail pops. The common ones are flashing, venting problems, granule loss, isolated damage. On these types of items, they can be repaired relatively reasonably priced. Of course, it all has. If you have granule loss really bad across the whole roof system, it's going to need replaced. If you have granule loss on a small slope or a section where somebody's been walking, or things like that, it might be a few shingles on one side, and just let those numbers add up and figure out where you're at. Just don't take those and freak out about them. Don't just take it and be like, oh, my roof venting problems, that's a big deal. You can add vents, you can take away vents, you can fix vents. That might be $100 repair. It's not going to be $8,000-$10,000. Isolated shingle damage. I look at reports all the time from home inspectors where it's, hail damage on this roof. Evaluate, or send a roofer out to qualified roofer to evaluate and repair. Isolated shingle damage is definitely simple to fix if it's isolated. Now, there's a caveat to that. If you had a bad hailstorm and it's not isolated, it's scattered, you're going to have to look at replacing it, because there's so much work that goes into replacing a few shingles. Like, it sounds like it's great. On a new roof, it's not bad. If that roof has some age, it can be rough. You can damage some shingles above it, below it. 10 turns into 30, and that's where the cost really comes up. So just let those areas not really be a big deal. Figure it out as you go. Figure it out when that roofer goes out. Let him evaluate it. Let him give you some options. If you don't feel comfortable with those options, get another roofer out there. They're everywhere, and some are just looking for replacements, and some will help you. And so it's all about that. Just make sure your clients, or if you're a client and you're watching this, you're buying a house, looking at buying a house, know that there's options. You can get things figured out. It's not the end of the world. There's always a solution. Issues that, like I said, really do matter when it comes to stuff like this. We're looking for active leaks. That's a thing, but a lot of active leaks can be sealed. Usually it's a sealant problem missing, or a shingle that's blown off, or a roof vent that's not flashed right. It's simple things, and most of the time it's repairable for pretty reasonable. Now, like I said, scatter damage, that's a bad one. That thing, that's where things kind of get shaky. What we do when there's scatter damage is we do give an option, a repair option, a replace option, and it really depends on where they vary in price, whether the repair was close to the replacement or not. And for peace of mind, I know that not all homeowners are super worried about this. I know that not, all sellers have the money to replace their roof, So what we do is we go in and we'll evaluate all the damage that, if it's scattered hail damage or whatnot, and we kind of figure out what's bad and what's not. There's always hail damage that's really bad, going to cause a problem in the next 6 to 8 months. There's problems that's going to cause problems later on down the road. Now, what we like to do is we go up, we'll mark up all the hail damage we find, take pictures, evaluate what's going to fail within the next year or two. And then we let that know. And as a real estate agent, a big part on your end is looking at that repair proposal. If they put on there replace all damaged shingles, well, now we have a problem, because now as a contractor, as a roofer taking responsibility for this, I have to replace all damaged shingles. That's what I agreed to, and that's where things add up. You could, verbiage on those things really do matter. And so instead of saying, if they put in their repair proposal, replace all damaged shingles, then send back and put, you could try to get back with repair, all damaged shingles that could lead to a leak or an issue in the next year or 2 years, or repair all shingles that the roofer deems necessary. There's different things that you can say and do to really help that still move through, because you really don't want to get in that situation where you thought everything was good, the roofer went up and repaired the shingles that you told him to, and then they get a home inspector back out and they're like, no, there's still some shingles here with these little nicks on them, and you're like, well, that's not damage that we were going to replace because it's not bad. Well, your repair proposal says replace all damaged shingles, so that's really something to be careful about. Structural sag, you'll look at a roof and it'll look kind of wavy sometimes, and that's because of the OSB or the trusses not being perfectly aligned, the clips. There's things that kind of, OSB, the decking, it swells, contracts, you get some spots, you get some hot spots, some soft filling spots. But a lot of it's not really bad. It's not really soft decking. It's just where a clip is because the trusses are on a 24-inch center instead of a 16, or it's a 7/16 decking and not 5/8 or 3/4. And so that's really where you run into that. So most of the time that sounds bad on report. Hey, I see structural sag, or I see soft decking, and so people start freaking out. There's rot, there's this or that. Let it be evaluated. Let it be looked at. Always keep that open mind. Don't look at those reports and just think that means that it's falling apart. No, there's other things. Now if you have a structural sag, and we're saying it's structural because it's bowing on the ridge or it's bowing on the rafters, there's things like that it needs to be looked at. It needs to be looked at by, whether it's an engineer or a contractor to see if it is safe, if it's fine. There's things in there that vary. Ventilation damage, if you have an enclosed attic space, which we have a lot around here, people still have some vents on it. That's not right. So those can be sealed up, not a big deal. Seal it up, move on. But if it's been on there long enough that the roof decking's gotten hot, it's done, it's baked some of that shingles, it's made the lifespan of that shingle less, then that comes back to what's the roof condition currently? Does the roof look all right? It might be a 2-year-old roof, but if it looks 6 or 7 years old, you can seal those up. It's still a functional roof. It's still fine. Now, it can get really hot where those shingles get really brittle. They're not going to last. That's a different situation. Adding vents or subtracting vents, adding soffit vents, make sure they have baffles in the attic to allow the ventilation to work like it's supposed to. All those kind of come into play. So if you ever see something like this on your report, don't make a big deal about it. Get the roofer out there, get the contractor out there, get an engineer out there, get it checked out. It might not be a big deal. End of useful life. That doesn't mean it's unsafe. That doesn't mean it's going to leak. That doesn't mean it has failed. That doesn't mean that the bank won't lend on the house. I know everybody's in a tight spot. You might be trying to save a little bit of money. You're like, that roof isn't a big deal, but I don't know if I can get my loan, or I don't know if I can get insurance. Look, let it figure itself out. It's a discussion when it comes to it. Do they need to see about filing an insurance claim? Do you need to see about the lifespan? You can file an insurance claim on that roof and still close on it, because the insurance owed for that policy. It doesn't owe for if they still carried that policy after they sold the house. It's the date of the loss. So it's possible to still get that thing replaced through the seller's insurance later on, after closing. So you just don't let those things really freak you out. Replace when the damage rod spread. Replace whenever the integrity of it has been compromised. Usually the structural decking, stuff like that. If repairs are really close to the replacement cost, go ahead and replace it. A lot of these things can be fixed if they're done at a pre-inspection time, like before you list the house. Get somebody out there. Get us out there. Take a look. Give you an evaluation of what that looks like before you list the house. When I was an inspector, I used to do a lot of pre-listing inspections. Now, I did those for a decent price because they wasn't as, in depth as an inspection for closing or anything like that. It was, hey, this is what I see. These are some big money items. This is what it is. And you need to start getting these looked at so that you expect these to come up. There's nothing worse than waiting until the last minute, 2 weeks before closing, you have an inspector go out, and next thing you know, there's all these problems. Get somebody out there to take a look at it beforehand. Even if it's a contractor you trust. Usually I wouldn't recommend that because home inspectors look at a few different things. They're not all the same. Not every inspector is the same. So you could have your inspector go out, he could find all these things, y'all fix them, and then the inspection report comes back and he finds other things. Or you go out there, have your inspector go out, he finds all these things, and I usually recommend, repair some of the big ticket items that are pretty bad. The other stuff, just expect it to happen. The inspector might come through and this inspector might not care if that door latches easy. He might not care if the countertop, isn't sealed on one side. He might not care of all this stuff. And so fix what you fix. But if you fix everything, believe me, that inspector's going to dig harder and find something. He has to have something for his report. He's going to find something. There's no perfect house, no matter how many times you do it. People think that calling the insurance during the deal really helps it. They think all storm damage is approved, insurance, the size, roof condition. That's not real. I would say that if it's storm damage and it's covered under your policy, it should be approved. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a ACV policy or a roof schedule policy where they're going to pay you a percentage. The roof might be $20,000. Your deductible is $5,000. So now they're going to pay you $15,000. Well, not really, not if it's that roof schedule or ACV. Now they're going to cover half of that. It just depends on the age of your roof. So you might be trying to get a $15,000 or $20,000 roof, and you might only be getting $4,000 or $5,000 from the insurance. But now it's on a claim. Now you better do something about it because somebody's going to figure it out. When you go to close, they're going to pull that when you try to get insurance. Like, hey, did this get fixed? I see there's a claim on it. So now it's a flagged. So don't let that happen. Don't get pushed into making an insurance claim if they don't know the ins and outs, if they don't know what they're talking about. The first thing, what I would say is call the roofer first. If you're doing a roof, call the contractor first. If you're doing the contract, if it needs something else. Separate safety and lifespan. Safety is soft decking. Somebody can fall through that. Safety is leaks coming in that house that can lead to growth of microbial growth. It can lead to all these other things. And lifespan is that roof's getting old. It is. All roofs get old. Texas heat, the weathers that we have, it gets old. Make sure there's photos to back everything. You don't want one or two photos saying bad roof. You want some photos to show. You want photos to show where the leak's coming from, where you believe the leak's coming from, what the leak is doing, all the condition of the roof, even on the good sides. You want pictures of it. Negotiate those repairs in that proposal. Like I said, you negotiate the verbiage. Verbiage is the biggest part. Make sure you just don't agree to replacing all damaged items. Only as necessary. Only as the contractor deems necessary. What we do is what we try to offer is repair all shingles that could cause potential leaks in the future or potential problems in the near future. And then we give a 1 or a 2 year leak-free guarantee. That means that we said that roof is good for at least 1 or 2 years. If we gave a 2 year leak guarantee and you get a leak in those 2 years, we come out. If it's not storm damage related, like a tree falls on your roof, hailstorm comes through and destroys it, stuff like that, we're going to come out, we're going to repair it, and we move on. Everybody needs peace of mind. Everybody needs somebody they can trust. That's really what our goal is, to be somebody that you can trust. I'd say, case studies, but what I'm going to say is there's been multiple times, but when I was both an inspector and I was a roofer, I know a lot of real estate agents and inspections. If I flagged a roof for, hey, the roof age, the age is near its lifespan, the buyers start panicking. They might try to walk away. The seller's resisting me because I said it needs a roof, and now they're freaking out because they don't have the money. So just document everything. Don't make it a bigger deal than it is. Figure it all out, get everything in order, and then address the problem. There's always options. Let it, you don't want to hold up the deals because somebody's trying to move in their house. Somebody's trying to move out of their house. And real estate agents trying to close that deal so they can move on to somebody else or something else. There's things that happen that you just don't want to wait till the last minute. That's the biggest thing. Don't wait till the last minute. If you're listing a house, get it looked at. Get it looked at before it goes on the market or right when it goes on the market. If you're the one buying a house, use that period that you have as quickly as possible to start getting things figured out. Get your own roofer out there to evaluate it. You don't have to be the seller's roofer to just evaluate it. Schedule for your own roofer to go look at it. See if he thinks that, hey, here's what we can do. We can repair it. After you move in, we can repair it. It's going to be this much. Ask for this much from the seller, and it'll cover it during closing. There's options. There's options. What we do to support some of our local real estate agents is we do free listing inspections. So pre-listing inspections where this house is going on the market. We go out, we look at the windows, we're going to look at the siding, we're going to look at the roof and the venting in the attic. Let's look at everything we can look at to let you know where you need to be set up, what needs to be fixed now, what is the issues, what's coming around. We're going to document that. We use a system that we put everything into, take photos, put our notes in, and then you email a report. You have a report. You show what we found, what we know, what we said, what we recommend. We always try to go with the repair first mindset, not a replace first. Like I said, most things can be repaired. We're not going to scare you into buying a roof. We're trying to earn your business. We're trying to earn your trust, and that's really what it's all about. That's really the biggest thing is we see all these reports come in and people freaking out, people trying to get forced to put a new roof on their house they don't have the money for. Just give us a call. Let us come out. Let us take a look. We've done multiple repairs last year that we didn't even really charge for. We used a tube of sealant and maybe some shingles we had laying in the shop. We make sure they match or at least close as possible. But, things like that to where they're not having to spend all that money. There's things that are better off than me making, $30 or $40 off of you, or $500 or $600 off of you. If we can go in and we can help, it doesn't take a whole lot of time. Maybe we'll earn your business in the future. That's what we bank on. Not just your pocketbook every time. We're here to help. So that's really about it on that aspect of that. So just, give Roof on Texas a call. If you have a house going on the market, give us a call. Let us come out, take a look at it, let you know what we see, give you that report, and, might save you a deal, might save you a lot of time, a lot of stress. Just let us come out, take a look at it. You can reach me direct at 931-220-9554. No, I know it's out of town number. I was in the military, stationed up in Campbell, Kentucky. We lived in Tennessee, so I just kept that number. Or you can call the office line at 254-366-0315. We'll be more than happy to get y'all taken care of and get you looked at. Thank you. Your Texas Trusted Roofer.